Hello to our new viewers and welcome back to those familiar with Decoding Autism Now, a trusted source for science-backed insights into autism. I'm Dr. Elise Martin. If you're a parent, caregiver, or someone whose life has been touched by autism, you know it can often feel like a complex puzzle with 1,000 different pieces. Today, we're going to look closely at one of those pieces, a tiny, fragile switch inside our cells that might hold some big answers. We're moving beyond a purely clinical view to explore a story of biology, of signals, and of hope. This isn't just about abstract science. It's about understanding the why behind some of the most challenging aspects of autism and what we can do to help. The hero of our story today is a tiny enzyme with a big name, Adenylyl Cyclase, or AC for short. To make this simple, let's imagine AC as a critical doorbell embedded in the wall of every one of our cells. When a signal arrives from outside the cell, say a hormone or a neurotransmitter, it rings this doorbell. This is the first step in telling the cell what's happening in the wider world. And what happens when this doorbell is rung? AC springs into action. It takes a molecule of ATP, which is the cell's universal energy currency, and instantly transforms it into something new, cyclic AMP, or CAMP. If ATP is the raw power, CAMP is the urgent message that power creates. It's the second messenger, the shout inside the house that tells everyone something important has happened at the front door. This single conversion is one of the most fundamental communication steps in our entire biology, happening constantly in our brain, our gut, our immune system, and our endocrine glands. So what does this urgent message CAMP actually do? It doesn't act alone. Its first job is to wake up a worker protein called pKa. Once pKa is activated, it travels to the cell's command center, the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, pKa finds the master switch for long-term projects, a protein called CREB, which is an abbreviation for cyclic AMP response element binding protein. Think of CREB as the foreman at a construction site. When CAMP's message arrives, CREB gets the signal to read the cell's blueprints, our DNA, and start building things. This is how our brain cells form new connections when we learn something new, a process called synaptic plasticity. It's how our immune cells know when to mobilize and how to stand down. It's how our gut cells regulate their movement. Without this simple CAMP to CREB signal, the most vital long-term adaptations in our body would grind to a halt. When this system works, we are resilient. When it's fragile, problems can emerge. So what can go wrong? What can make this signal fragile? One common disruptor comes from our food. In some individuals, proteins like gluten and casein aren't fully broken down. They leave behind tiny fragments called opioid peptides. These fragments can act like gummy keys, fitting into special locks on our cells called opioid receptors. When this happens, it's like jamming the doorbell. It tells AC to quiet down, inhibiting its ability to produce that vital CAMP message. Another source of disruption is toxins from bacteria or fungi. Pertussis toxin from Bordetella pertussis is known to cause ADP ribosylation of the GAI subunit. Some of these toxins are master counterfeiters. They can either mimic the AC enzyme itself or hijack it, forcing it to go into overdrive or shut down completely. This is a direct assault on our cellular communication, creating chaos where there should be order. For some, the vulnerability is genetic. Certain genes like ADCY3 and ADCY5 are the blueprints for building the AC enzyme itself. If there are variations in these genes, it can mean that from birth, a person's cells have a quieter, less effective doorbell. Their baseline signal is already turned down, making them more susceptible to other disruptions. And finally, there's chronic inflammation. Think of inflammation as the body's fire alarm. A little bit is good. It alerts us to danger. But when that alarm is stuck on, day in and day out, it creates a huge amount of systemic noise. This constant state of high alert, driven by inflammatory molecules called cytokines, makes it incredibly difficult for the delicate CAMP signal to be heard, further suppressing AC's function. Now the body is smart. It doesn't just let this vital signal fail. When it senses that the AC doorbell is too quiet, it initiates an emergency override. The brain signals the adrenal glands to release epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. This is the body's fight or flight hormone. Epinephrine's job is to shout so loudly that the message has to get through. It binds to a different set of receptors on the cell surface that give AC a powerful jolt, forcing it to wake up and start producing CAMP again. In the short term, this is a brilliant compensatory strategy. It can restore some of the lost signaling, but running on adrenaline 24/7 comes at a steep price. This long-term cost is called allostatic load. It's the wear and tear on the body from being in a constant state of emergency. It's like revving your car's engine in the red for days on end. Eventually, things start to break. This chronic adrenaline push can lead to anxiety, sleep disturbances, high blood pressure, and problems with glucose metabolism. The solution becomes a problem in itself. Crucially, this compensation is not uniform. It's a messy, regional affair. The body is essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul. The flood of epinephrine might successfully boost the CAMP signal in one tissue, like the immune system, but simultaneously cause chaos in another. Let's take a powerful example: hearing. In the auditory circuits, this constant adrenaline-driven compensation can crank up the central gain. Imagine your hearing has a volume knob. Normally, it's set at a comfortable level, but when the system is flooded with epinephrine, it's like someone twists that knob all the way to maximum. Normal sounds can become intensely, painfully loud. This is hyperacusis, a debilitating sensitivity to sound that many individuals with autism experience. The net result of this flawed compensation is what we can call compensatory noise. It's the collection of symptoms that arise not from the original problem, but from the body's frantic attempts to fix it. This includes sensory overload, GI dysmotility as the fight-or-flight system shuts down digestion, profound sleep disruption from being constantly wired, and a dysregulated immune system. These are core features of autism, and here we see a plausible mechanism connecting them all. The chronic inflammation we mentioned earlier has another devastating side effect. It activates an enzyme called IDO. IDO's job is to take tryptophan, an essential amino acid we get from food, and divert it down a stress pathway. Here's the problem. Our body also needs that same tryptophan to make serotonin, our primary feel-good and calm-down neurotransmitter. And serotonin, in turn, is needed to make melatonin, our sleep hormone. So inflammation forces a terrible choice. It steals the raw materials for calm and sleep to fuel the stress response. Clinically, what does this look like? It looks like a child or adult struggling with anxiety, persistent insomnia, chronic GI pain, and restrictive eating or food aversions, partly driven by that gut discomfort. These symptoms, so often seen together in autism, are not random. They are the logical downstream consequences of inflammation hijacking a critical biochemical pathway. Now for a fascinating twist that helps explain a long-standing question in autism research. Why is it diagnosed so much more often in males? It turns out there's a biological protective factor that is more available to females: estrogen. Estrogen can activate a completely separate signaling pathway, a kind of secret backdoor that bypasses the broken AC doorbell entirely. This pathway, called the ARC-MAP pathway, can also go on to activate that same master formin, CREB. So even if CAMP levels are low, estrogen provides an alternative route to get the message through and maintain critical cellular functions. Because this backup system is tied to female hormones, it provides a layer of biological resilience that males typically lack. This doesn't mean females are immune, but it helps explain why they may be less vulnerable to this specific mechanism of disruption, contributing to the skewed male-to-female ratio we see in autism diagnoses. Understanding this complex cascade gives us a clear, logical roadmap for intervention. We have two primary goals. First, we need to calm the alarm system by reducing the inflammatory drivers. Second, we need to find ways to restore the original signal or, like estrogen, cleverly bypass it. Lowering systemic inflammation is always step one. You can't repair the doorbell while the fire alarm is blaring. When we reduce inflammation, the body no longer feels under constant attack. This reduces the demand for the emergency adrenaline response and allows the IDO enzyme to quiet down, freeing up that precious tryptophan to support mood and sleep. So how do we do this? Certain natural compounds can be powerful allies. Resveratrol, found in grapes, acts as a potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, is a master at inhibiting NF-kappa B, the primary switch that turns on inflammation, and it also helps calm overactive mast cells. These can be thought of as the fire department for our cells. To restore or bypass the signal, we have other tools. Non-soy-derived genistein, a phytoestrogen, can gently activate those same estrogen receptors, mimicking the female protective bypass. For some, a compound called forskolin can directly stimulate certain types of AC, essentially giving the doorbell a manual push. This requires careful consideration, as it won't work if the AC enzyme itself is the problem. Beyond supplements, lifestyle strategies are paramount. We can directly lower the need for adrenaline through techniques like structured breathing, mindfulness, and ensuring adequate magnesium, the body's calming mineral. We can powerfully reduce inflammation with our diet, focusing on whole foods, healthy fats like omega-3s, and a diverse range of plants to support a healthy gut microbiome. And critically, we can resynchronize our body's internal clocks through circadian entrainment, using timed light exposure, regular meal times, and strict sleep hygiene to act as the conductor for our body's orchestra. It is absolutely essential to state that this is not a one-size-fits-all protocol. This approach must be personalized, ideally with the guidance of a knowledgeable clinician. It requires careful consideration of an individual's genetics, their specific symptoms, and potential interactions with medications. For example, phytoestrogens like Genistein should be used with caution and professional oversight. The therapeutic strategy follows a logical order. Step 1. Reduce the inflammation. This is the foundation. Step 2. Support the downstream signaling pathways and consider gentle bypass strategies. Step 3. Actively work to normalize the body's compensatory responses through lifestyle, stress modulation, and circadian rhythm support. In practice, the results can be profound. For many individuals, simply reducing inflammation and supporting histamine clearance can dramatically reduce hyperacusis and improve GI symptoms within weeks to months. It's a sign that we're successfully turning down the body's emergency alarms. It's important to have realistic expectations. This is like tending a garden, not flipping a switch. You first have to prepare the soil by lowering inflammation. The initial biochemical shifts can happen in weeks, but the deeper work of rewiring neural networks and restoring systemic balance takes months. Progress should be tracked not just by how someone feels, but by objective markers of function and health. So, to summarize, a disruption in the fundamental Adenylyl Cyclase signal can create a cascade of problems in autism. The body's attempt to compensate with adrenaline helps some tissues but harms others, creating a host of symptoms from sensory overload to gut pain. Estrogen provides a natural bypass that offers a protective effect for many females. But by using a logical, systems-based approach, reducing inflammation, supporting the signal, and normalizing the stress response, we have powerful clinical leverage to restore balance. This framework offers a new lens through which to view autism, not as a fixed, unchangeable condition, but as a dynamic state with biological pathways that we can understand and support. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into some uncharted territory about autism. Let me know your thoughts on these novel perspectives in the comments section. Always consult with a healthcare professional about any new therapeutic strategies and changes to your routine that may impact your current state of health. This is especially important for those on the autistic spectrum. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into some uncharted territory. I hope you have enjoyed watching and learning about the new concepts presented. Please share this video with others and post the link in your social media. Don't forget to like, as that helps get the word out on this channel. And finally, subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. I'm Dr. Elise Martin, and this is your final thought for today. Sometimes the smallest of things, like the AC molecule, can yield the greatest answers and make the most impact.